Finally, I felt free from a heavy burden. Starting today, my parents would be living with me in my house, or so I thought. But everything changed in an instant. When my parents passed away, my husband, Calix, took an unthinkable step. He demolished our family home, the place where I grew up, filled with memories of love and laughter. As we stood in front of the empty lot, the ground bare and lifeless, he said something that left me utterly shocked. "Hurry up and bring the inheritance to our place," he declared, his voice cold and expectant. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart raced as I turned to him, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "What are you talking about? Have you completely lost your mind?" I asked, struggling to process his words. His parents stood beside him, their faces smug, as if they were in on some grand plan. His words weren't just shocking, they were a betrayal. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of the situation hit me like a tidal wave. Calix and his parents looked confused as my laughter echoed in the empty space. "Why are you laughing? Don't you understand?" Calix snapped, his tone sharp and impatient. It was then that I decided it was time to tell them the truth, to lay bare the reality of who I was and where I came from. "My name is Arden Jackson," I began, speaking calmly, though my heart was pounding. "I was born the eldest daughter of parents who were ordinary office workers. I have one younger brother, and we were a simple, unremarkable family. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was good. We had love, warmth, and enough to get by." I explained how I married Calix when I was 28 years old, full of hope for our future together. We built a life, raising 2 wonderful children, a son named Kale and a daughter named Leora. Life wasn't always easy. There were challenges, like balancing work and motherhood, but it felt balanced, fulfilling even. By the time I reached 50, my children were grown, living independently and building their own careers. It seemed like the perfect time for Calix and me to relax, to enjoy the next chapter of our lives together. I thought we were on the same page, dreaming of a peaceful future. But that dream was about to shatter in ways I never could have imagined. Everything changed one cold winter day. My father was in a car accident and passed away suddenly at just 66 years old. The news hit our family like a freight train. Grief consumed us, but it was especially devastating for my mother. She sank into a deep depression, unable to eat or find joy in anything. "Mom, I know it's hard, but you have to eat something," I urged her, my voice soft as I tried to comfort her. "I know, Arden," she replied weakly, her eyes hollow. "But I just don't have any appetite. It feels like there's a heavy weight pressing down on my chest." At first, my brother and I thought it was just her way of grieving. We gave her time, hoping she'd slowly heal. But she didn't. Within 3 weeks, she had lost a shocking amount of weight, her frail frame a shadow of the vibrant woman she once was. Worried, I insisted on taking her to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor's diagnosis was a crushing blow: cancer, advanced and inoperable. They gave her about a year to live. I felt my world collapse. I hadn't even processed my father's death, and now I was losing my mother too. The pain was unbearable, but I couldn't let it consume me. I had to be strong for her. My brother lived far away, so the responsibility of caring for our mother fell on me. I told Calix I wanted her to move in with us so I could be there for her during her illness. But his reaction was anything but supportive. "We just finished dealing with your dad's funeral," he said, his voice dripping with annoyance. "And now I'm supposed to deal with more of your family's problems?" His words stung, cutting deeper than I expected. "You don't have to say it like that," I replied, hurt by his lack of empathy. "Can't you just drive her to her doctor's appointments? Do we really need to live with her?" he pressed, his frustration growing. I tried to explain. "She's going to feel lonely, Calix. I want to be there for her. If it's really a problem, I could stay at my parents' house for a while instead." But that suggestion only made him angrier. "And who's going to take care of me while you're gone? Who's going to cook my meals? Who's going to do the laundry?" he demanded, his voice rising. I was speechless. I just wanted to care for my dying mother, but Calix made me feel like I was asking for the impossible. After days of heated arguments, Calix begrudgingly agreed to let my mother move in. "Fine, but don't expect me to help with anything," he said coldly. Thank you, I replied, swallowing my frustration. It wasn't fair, but I was relieved to at least have his permission. So, we moved into my family home to care for my mother. Calix and I had been living in a house provided by his employer, so we hadn't bought our own home yet. His parents had always planned for us to move in with them eventually, but for now, my family's house was the best option. It had more space, and we didn't have to pay the rent we'd been covering before. True to his word, Calix didn't lift a finger to help. He left everything to me, cooking, cleaning, and caring for my mother. But I was grateful for the chance to be there for her in her final days. She was often weak, spending much of her time lying down, but I made her meals, fed her, and ensured she took her medication. "Thank you, Arden," she said one evening, her voice soft but sincere. "It's such a relief to have you here with me. And please thank Calix too. I'm so grateful to him for letting me stay." She didn't know how cruel Calix had been about the situation, and I didn't have the heart to tell her point one evening. After my mother had gone to bed, Calix came home from work. As we sat down for dinner, I tried to discuss her treatment plan, hoping for a moment of connection. But before I could finish, he cut me off with a glare. "I don't know what you expect me to say," he snapped. His attitude left me feeling utterly alone. "I told you I'm not helping with anything," he added, his voice sharp. No matter how much I tried to talk to him, he refused to listen. All I wanted was someone to lean on, someone to share the weight of this impossible time. I didn't need him to fix anything, just to listen. But Calix wasn't interested. Months passed, and his behavior only grew worse. 2 months, then 3, and he still treated living with my mother as if it were some monumental sacrifice. He complained constantly, acting as if he were doing me an enormous favor by allowing her to stay. His attitude wasn't just indifferent, it was cruel, and it grew more unbearable by the day. Between worrying about my mother's health and trying to keep the peace with Calix, I was drowning in stress. Then, my mother's condition worsened rapidly, much faster than we had anticipated. The 1-year prognosis we had feared was cut short. She had to be hospitalized, and just 5 days later, she passed away. Even though I had tried to prepare myself for this moment, the pain was overwhelming. My brother, his family, and my children came immediately to help with the funeral preparations. In moments like these, you want your spouse by your side, someone to lean on emotionally. But Calix? He was off in a corner, laughing and chatting with his parents as if it were just another day. He didn't help with a single thing, leaving all the heavy lifting to my brother. Somehow, we managed to organize the funeral without him. During the ceremony, Calix's behavior became even more shocking. Instead of sitting in the family section where he belonged, he stayed in the back with distant relatives. It was humiliating. "Calix, I want you to sit in the family section," I whispered, trying to keep my composure. He shook his head. "No, I'm fine here. I'm not a blood relative, after all," he said casually, as if it were no big deal. I was stunned. "But you're my husband," I reminded him, my voice trembling. Before he could respond, his mother chimed in. "He may be your husband, but he's not your mother's son. Calix is our son, so he's technically an outsider too. You should sit in the family section alone, Arden." Her words felt like a slap in the face. In my hometown, it's customary for sons-in-law to sit with the family at funerals, but clearly, Calix and his parents didn't share those values. Their lack of respect left me speechless. To make matters worse, distant relatives began whispering, speculating if Calix and I had secretly divorced. Despite my anger and embarrassment, I focused on saying goodbye to my mother, trying to honor her memory with dignity. After the funeral, everyone, my brother's family, my children, Calix, and his parents, returned to my family home. I served tea, trying to express my gratitude. "Thank you for coming, especially during such a busy time," I said politely. But instead of offering condolences, my in-laws laughed. "Well, it's been something, hasn't it? First your father, now your mother. These funeral expenses are such a burden, but at least it's all over now," they said, as if it were a joke. Their words stunned me. A burden? I felt my face flush with anger, but I forced a smile and excused myself to another room. As I stepped away, I overheard Calix talking with his parents. It must have been tough for you, Calix, living without support, his mother said sympathetically. Yeah, dealing with Arden's whims was such a pain, Calix replied. A husband shouldn't just follow his wife's demands. If you don't like something, you have every right to refuse, his father added. Their laughter and casual tone made my blood boil. They had no idea what I had been going through, or maybe they just didn't care. Calix and his parents had always been insensitive, but their behavior reached a new low. Even when we got married, his mother had said, "Couldn't you find someone more attractive? I guess I can't expect much from the grandchildren now." His father had chimed in, joking, "They say beauty gets boring after 3 days, but with Arden, you won't get bored." Calix had just laughed along with them. Now, as I stood listening to their conversation, I realized they hadn't offered a single kind word after either of my parents' deaths. Instead, they mocked and ridiculed me. For so long, I had felt guilty about burdening Calix with my family's issues, but now I saw his behavior for what it was, cruel and selfish. Then, my mother-in-law called out to me, holding my late mother's purse. "Arden, can I have this?" she asked casually, as if it were nothing. I was too shocked to respond at first. "What?" I stammered. "Well, your mother doesn't need it anymore, right?" Calix suggested I take it. "Maybe I'll just keep it," she said, inspecting the purse like she was shopping. I couldn't believe her audacity. "No, you can't have it," I said firmly. Her expression changed instantly. Furious that I had dared to stand up to her, we're not ready to sort through my mother's belongings yet. "When the time comes, we'll distribute her keepsakes among the family," I said, holding my ground. Her face turned red with anger. "What do you mean? Are you saying I'm an outsider?" she snapped. I looked her straight in the eye. "You're the one who said at the funeral that Calix was an outsider to my mother. So, yes, by that logic, you're an outsider too." Calix and his father turned red with anger. "How dare you talk to Mom like that? Apologize right now," Calix demanded. Their shouting drew everyone from the other room. My mother-in-law, now furious, shouted dramatically, "I didn't expect to be called an outsider after all the effort we put into attending this funeral. Let's go home, Dad." She stormed out, and Calix followed without another word. My family, confused by the commotion, asked what happened. "Did you really call your mother-in-law an outsider?" they asked. I explained everything, and once they understood the full story, not a single person blamed me. Even my children sided with me. "Grandma and Grandpa should be more considerate of other people's feelings," they said. "That's just how Dad, Grandma, and Grandpa have always been." Their support gave me strength, but I knew this was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. Since that awful day, Calix hadn't come home, and I hadn't reached out to him either. I didn't feel like I should be the one to apologize, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive him, even if he did. But I knew we couldn't go on like this forever. Then, one day, Calix returned unexpectedly. "Welcome home," I said, forcing myself to stay calm despite the anger bubbling inside me. "It's been tough, huh?" he said, his tone gruff and awkward, as if he were trying to sound concerned. His words caught me off guard. Before I could respond, he handed me some travel vouchers. "Take the kids and go on a trip. A change of scenery will do you good," he said. I was speechless. Tears welled up in my eyes. I wasn't sure if this was his way of making amends or if it was the kids' idea, but it touched me that he went along with it. Without a word, I took the vouchers and thanked him. Later, I called my children to plan the trip. "Really? Dad suggested this?" Leora asked, her voice full of surprise. "Yeah, he did," I replied. "It's surprising, isn't it?" "It really is," she said. The kids were just as astonished as I was, but they were excited about the idea. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. I packed my bags, ready for a little escape. "I'll be off then," I said to Calix as I prepared to leave. "Take your time," he replied. "Stay with the kids at their places too if you want." "Really?" "I can't be away that long," I said, feeling unsure. "Don't worry about me. I'll relax at my parents' place." "Just enjoy yourself," he insisted. With that, I left for my trip. First, I visited Leora, who was thrilled to have me. Then, I stopped by Kale's place. I hadn't had the chance to visit them much in the past couple of years while caring for my mother, so this time was special. I helped both of them by cooking and freezing meals, which they greatly appreciated. "Mom, you should be relaxing, not working," Kale said, laughing. "This really helps." "It's no trouble," I replied, happy to do something for my kids. Finally, the day of the spa trip arrived. My children and I spent a few days at the hot springs, soaking in the peaceful surroundings. The time together helped me heal, both physically and emotionally. For the first time in a long while, I felt the heavy weight of caregiving and grief begin to lift. "This was so much fun," Kale said as we wrapped up the trip. "We should thank Dad for this. Just this once," Leora added with a smile. "I agree." "It was thoughtful of him," I said, feeling a small glimmer of gratitude. When I returned home, I was ready to share the happy memories with Calix and start fresh as a couple. But what I saw left me speechless. My family home, the house I grew up in, filled with memories of my parents, was gone. I stood frozen, staring at the empty lot where it should have been. The home was no longer there, reduced to rubble and dust. My heart pounded in disbelief. Then, out of nowhere, Calix appeared, flanked by his parents, who were grinning as if they'd accomplished something grand. "Calix, what's going on?" I asked, trying to stay calm. His sickening smile deepened. "Finally, I'm rid of that burden. Starting today, my parents are moving in with me here," he said, gesturing at the empty lot. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Have you lost your mind?" Calix's father added smugly, "Your family home has been demolished. Now bring over the inheritance. Whatever you've inherited, it's Calix's now." It was then that I realized the horrifying truth. Calix and his parents had demolished the house, assuming there was a substantial inheritance waiting for them. Anger and sadness overwhelmed me, but I refused to let them see me cry. Instead, I burst into laughter, the absurdity of their greed and betrayal overwhelming me. "What's so funny?" Calix demanded, his grin fading. "She's lost it," his mother muttered, looking at me as if I were crazy. Through my laughter, I finally managed to say, "There's no inheritance. Not a single penny. You destroyed my family's home for nothing." Their faces froze in shock. "What do you mean?" Calix demanded, his voice rising. I didn't bother explaining further. "I'm not living with strangers. If you want to live together, you can do it without me," I said firmly, turning to leave. "Where are you going?" Calix shouted after me, but I didn't look back. That night, I consulted a lawyer. Demolishing a house couldn't be done so easily, especially when it was still under my mother's name. As I explained the situation, I learned an unbelievable truth. Calix and his father had demolished the house themselves. His father, who worked in demolition, had enlisted acquaintances to carry out the plan, even renting heavy machinery to do the job. The travel vouchers were a calculated move to get me out of the way while they executed their scheme. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the depth of their betrayal, but the lawyer reassured me. Calix unlawfully demolished a property that wasn't in his name. He can be charged with property destruction and held liable for damages. "Let's start by demanding a formal apology from him and his parents," the lawyer said with a kind smile. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had been wronged, but I wasn't powerless. The lawyer quickly took action, sending Calix a legal notice for compensation. A few days later, I got a furious call from him. "What's with this certified letter?" he yelled. "Oh, you got it," I replied calmly. "You destroyed my family's house, so of course you have to compensate me." "Compensate? Are you serious?" "We said we were moving to my parents' place. I demolished a house that no one was living in. You should be thanking me, not demanding compensation," he said arrogantly. "Thank you for destroying my house? Don't make me laugh." "And what inheritance?" "It's not even settled yet," I shouted back, unable to hold in my anger. Calix went silent, clearly startled by my outburst. I rarely raised my voice, and this was probably the first time he'd seen this side of me. The truth was, I had already decided what to do about the inheritance long before any of this. During the year I spent with my mother, we had discussed it together. I told my brother I didn't want anything and asked him to take it all. In the end, He inherited all the cash and stocks. However, he insisted I take the house, knowing I was the only one who could manage it since he lived far away. We had planned to keep it in the family, either for me to live in or to rent out. But Calix had ruined that. Here's what's going to happen, I told him. Either you and your father restore the house to its original state, or you pay the amount specified in the legal notice. I'm trying to settle this peacefully, but if you don't comply, I'll file a police report and sue you. Calix panicked. I'm sorry, I didn't think you'd get so upset, he said, trying to excuse his behavior. Of course I'm angry. What did you expect? I snapped. His excuses didn't matter to me anymore. A month passed, and Calix still hadn't paid any compensation. He had also stopped contacting me altogether. I was staying at Leora's place, trying to figure out my next steps, but I was anxious to resolve this quickly so I could rebuild my life. Then, something shocking happened. One day, Leora called out to me, holding up her phone. Mom, doesn't this apron look like Grandma's? She asked, showing me a listing on a flea market app. I froze when I saw it. The apron was unique. I had made it for my mother years ago. What? That's Grandma's apron, I exclaimed. I made it, so I'm sure of it. Alarmed, Leora scrolled through the seller's listings. The profile was new, with no reviews or previous transactions, but it had nearly 45 items for sale. To my horror, all of them were my mother's belongings, dresses, jewelry, trinkets, and even her favorite kitchen utensils, all things that had been in the house before it was demolished. My heart sank. There was only one person who could have taken those items, Calix. Furious, I immediately called him. What's this about the app? I demanded. App? What are you talking about? He replied, sounding annoyed. Don't play dumb. You're selling my mother's belongings without permission, aren't you? Cancel those listings right now, I shouted. Calix stammered, trying to come up with an excuse. I don't know what you're talking about. You think I'm stupid? Stop this immediately or you'll regret it, I warned, my hands trembling as I ended the call. I couldn't waste any time. What do you mean it wasn't you? I demanded when I called Calix again. Who else would sell my mother's belongings? He sounded panicked. It really wasn't me, he stammered. Then who? I'm coming over right now to get everything back, I said, hanging up. Leora and I headed straight to Calix's parents' house. As soon as we arrived, I confronted him at the door. Where are my mother's things? I demanded, glaring at him. I don't know anything about it, he stuttered, looking visibly uncomfortable. Tell the truth, Dad, Leora chimed in, her voice sharp. Before he could respond, his parents appeared. Oh, Leora, you're here. Calix's mom said cheerfully, smiling as she noticed her granddaughter. Leora didn't waste any time. Grandma, tell Dad to tell the truth. What happened to Grandma's belongings? She demanded, her voice trembling with anger. At Leora's words, Calix's mom burst into laughter. Calix selling them? That's impossible, she exclaimed. Then, with a casual wave of her hand, she added, I'm the one selling them. Her words sent a chill through me. My blood ran cold, and I froze in disbelief. Calix's face turned pale, his expression revealing that he had known about this all along. Leora's shock mirrored mine, but his mother continued talking, seemingly unaware of the gravity of her actions. What's the big deal? She said nonchalantly. It's a lot of work, you know. I have to pack everything carefully and make sure the photos look good. It keeps me busy. She sounded almost proud, as if this were a normal hobby. Cancel the listings right now. Those aren't yours to sell, Leora yelled, tears streaming down her face. But her grandmother seemed annoyed rather than remorseful. What's the problem? I finally found a hobby I enjoy. Selling these things keeps my mind active. It's good for preventing dementia. Besides, I'm the only grandmother left, and Leora wants me to stay healthy and live long, right? She said smugly. Her audacity was infuriating, and it became clear that pleading with her wouldn't change anything. Let's go, Leora, I said firmly, pulling her away. But Mom, this isn't fair, Leora protested. I know, but this isn't something we can solve here. Let's go to the police, I replied, determined. At the police station, I explained that my mother's belongings had been stolen and were being sold without permission. The officers acted swiftly, suspending Calix's mother's account on the flea market app, ensuring the items couldn't be sold anymore. As we left the station, I called Calix. "I had your mother's account suspended. You knew about it, didn't you?" "That makes you complicit," I accused. "No, I didn't know she was doing that," he stammered, sounding frantic. "I've already filed a police report, so you better cooperate with the investigation," I warned. "What?" "We're family. Withdraw it, please," he begged. "Family? You still haven't paid a dime in compensation for the house, nor have you shown any remorse." "Don't talk to me about family," I snapped. Despite my anger, I felt conflicted. I had lived with Calix for so many years, and part of me still had lingering feelings for him. Sighing, I softened slightly. "I'll wait for the money, but I won't forgive the theft. Return everything. And by the way, your father doesn't look well. Has he seen a doctor?" "What?" Calix asked, sounding surprised. "I'm not a monster, Calix. I just thought you should know," I said before hanging up. Calix's father had looked alarmingly thin and sickly when I saw him earlier, his complexion unnatural. A few days later, I received a shocking call from Calix's father himself. "What do you mean by treating me like a sick person? Are you planning to dump me in a hospital and get rid of me?" he snapped. "I was just concerned about your health," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Don't make a fool of me." "I'm not frail or short-lived like your parents," he retorted harshly. His words infuriated me, but I let it go. Not long after, he visited a doctor and was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Calix called me panicked. "Dad's got terminal cancer. What am I supposed to do?" he cried. I couldn't help but scoff. "I don't know, Calix." When I suggested he go to the hospital, he told me he wasn't frail like my parents. "So deal with it yourself," I replied coldly. "How can you be so heartless, Arden?" he said, sounding hurt. "Heartless? Did you ever show my mother or me any kindness when we were going through the same thing? Reflect on your own actions," I said before hanging up. Calix's father passed away soon after. While I didn't want to harbor negative feelings toward someone who had died, I couldn't shed a single tear. The years of cruelty and hurt couldn't be erased. After the funeral, we discovered his will. Surprisingly, he had left their family house to Cale, my son. It seemed Calix's father had always favored Cale and wanted him to inherit the home. Though Cale was excited, I cautioned him. "You don't need that house. Renounce the inheritance. It'll only bring trouble," I said. But Cale insisted. "Grandpa wanted me to have it," he said, happy with the decision. The inheritance taxes were significant, but Calix's mother paid them, declaring, "He's our successor after all." It was bittersweet, as if Cale had been taken from me in some way. Then came the ultimate twist. One day, Calix called me in a panic. "Come over to the house right now," he shouted. When I arrived, I was stunned to see heavy machinery and trucks from a demolition company tearing down Calix's parents' house. Cale stood nearby, watching with a satisfied expression. "Cale, what's going on?" Calix yelled. "Stop this. This is our house. It's my house now. Grandpa left it to me, remember? I can do what I want with it," Cale replied calmly. Calix and his mother fell to their knees, begging Cale to stop, but he simply laughed. "Did you forget what Grandpa and Dad did to Mom? Grandma, you treated Mom horribly too. Did you ever apologize?" he said, his sharp glare silencing them. As the house was demolished, I finally felt a sense of closure. Later, Calix paid the damages and compensation with the remaining inheritance. Cale also retrieved all the stolen belongings and returned them to me. "You always have me and Leora," Cale said gently, and I finally let myself cry, this time with relief. Calix and his mother moved back into company housing, becoming the subject of rumors. Their future was uncertain, but I didn't concern myself with them anymore. I focused on moving forward. Cale got engaged and invited me to live with him and his fiancée. "Mom, come live with us," he offered. His fiancée welcomed me warmly, and I decided to accept, determined to enjoy this new chapter of my life. I resolved never to become a mother-in-law like Calix's mother and to live happily with my new family. The pain of the past would always linger, but with my children by my side, I felt ready to embrace the future with hope and strength. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.